You ready?
Amazing.
Are you ready? I'm going to start us off.
Yeah. As
Okay.
ready as I've ever been.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Literary Lens podcast with me, Anne Rose, and my amazing client who probably is not going to be on this side because Lane will probably change it as he's editing this. But Charlene Thomas, see, there he goes. So there
No,
she
that's
is.
weird though, because you weren't pointing at me before when whatever Lane just did to fix it, now you were pointing at me. You were pointing the wrong direction before. So maybe you're like in mirror mode.
You're on this.
Yeah.
Yes, you can change it so you can see yourself the right way in the settings. So
I
do
don't
we
like
want
that. I
to
like to see
take
myself
a
the way
moment?
I have to see myself the way I look in the mirror. I can't see myself how I look in real life. Like I
Okay.
need the reflection. So I'm good. We're great. Thanks, Lane.
Perfect. Okay. So anyway, we are here today to talk with Charlene Thomas, the author of It's You Every Time, which is coming out this year in May by
I know.
Scholastic. Are you ready? Are you
Crazy.
excited?
What is ready? I don't
What is
know.
ready?
No, I actually am super excited for this book. I feel like I was going through a little bit of like a whirlwind, because I just released Streetlight People back in November. So now with this happening 6 months to the day later, it took a second for me to kind of shift gear, especially because there's such different books. But I really feel like 2025, I've shifted fully into like my romance era, and I'm here and I'm ready. It's all I want to talk about.
I love it.
Yeah.
Actually, we should probably forewarn everyone, all the listeners, that I guess we were told that we were supposed to talk about romance, but we actually have zero agenda. So this is probably going to be the most chaotic episode of the Literary Lens you have ever seen. So you're welcome.
Yes. We'll all have fun together. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about It's You Every Time and how that came about, because this is not traditionally, how we generally think about, getting books sold into the industry.
Yeah.
People don't know about it. It is a work of IP. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love pulling the curtain up. What's this? I mess up every saying. Pulling up, taking the veil off your eyes, whatever it is. You guys know what I'm trying to say. I love giving the tea. So yeah, this is considered IP. Basically what that means for me is that Fee, who's our editor at Scholastic, who is incredible, like an angel on this earth, she actually read my debut, Seton Girls, back when it was on sub. Man, this is like, we're going back in time. This is what, 2021, I guess. She read Seton Girls when it was on sub, and I guess really loved, I don't know, you got the rejection. Was it like the voice and sort of the idea and the sentiment and all of those sorts of things? But the actual story and how it sort of came together wasn't like exactly the way that we didn't have exactly aligned visions on that part. So it wasn't a good fit at the time. But she ended up reaching back out to Anne the beginning of 2021, 2022, 2023.
2023. I would have to go back.
What is time?
I have no idea.
What is time? Isn't that part of the prompt today?
I think it is.
So she reached back out, I think the beginning of 2023 to you. And she basically was like, hey, I have an idea for a story and I'd love to see if Charlene would want to work on it with me. What do you think? And that, I guess that was really how it all started. I got really, really fortunate with Fee because there's been so much creative freedom that it really does genuinely feel like my child at this point. I think when Fee originally sort of pitched the idea, it was sort of a time loop and these two teens meet at a coffee shop, like in the universe didn't want them to, and it makes time start looping. And I remember writing back to Fee through you and basically being like, I love that, but what if we did it the exact opposite way and did it this way instead? And she was like, I think that's amazing. And so that was sort of how it all turned out and came to be. And now it's a whole book that went off to print yesterday.
Yes.
About that. Mm-hmm.
And the inside is beautiful, and I am obsessed with like the black. There's black pages.
Black pages.
There's black pages. They are so fantastic.
Yeah,
So
they're good.
I am obsessed with how it turned out. It looks amazing. The story is fantastic. And you're right. Like, you got to put your Charlene Thomas spin on this
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. I felt like there really wasn't any sort of guardrails. She was sort of just like, go forth and be a genius. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm a genius, but I'll try. And
I mean, I
and
know that
here
you're a
we
genius.
are. I
Yes.
know. You
Well,
tell me that all the time. You uplift me every time I need it. So that is very appreciated.
I mean, it is, not only is it my job, but I do speak the truth. So
No, you've never lied to
genius.
me. That
I've
I know,
never.
and I believe that you haven't.
I don't. I just make it a rule of thumb. And Lane will attest, and I'm sure he probably would love to jump in here, because he has this saying that he loves to talk about about Judge Judy. And Judge Judy says if that you tell the truth, then you never have to worry about, like,
You don't have to have a good
remembering.
memory. I know.
Yeah.
My mom is obsessed with Judge Judy, so I think I've probably seen every episode because it's like been on in the background, and that is definitely one of her number one sayings. She's right.
Yeah,
If you tell the truth, you never have to have a good memory.
absolutely. And here I'm getting another spam call. So excuse me while I block this number.
Oh,
I,
I've been getting so much spam, a bunch of like PayPal scams lately, like
yeah.
fake PayPals coming to me. I don't know. Be safe out there.
Okay. So let's keep talking about romance, because I think that's what we're supposed to be talking
Yeah,
about,
I
right?
want to. Wait, but we haven't even. So, yes, I have a book coming out May 6th, 2025, but you also have a romance book coming. Like, that's how we got paired to do this, right? So I feel like now it's your turn to say a little something about that.
I think that is a true statement. So I have my second romance book coming out this year. My first one was, oh, look, I happen to have it right here. So
Such a
weird
good
how that works.
author.
You know,
Such a
just
good author.
right there. So, The Seemingly Impossible Love Life of Amanda Dean did come out in September of last year. Oh my gosh, it's so weird to say that.
I remember.
2024. And then the A Excellent Chance to Fall in Love is supposed to come out sometimes this fall. And right now, there's a little drama on like when that release date's going to happen.
It'll be a
So
surprise. Yeah, stay tuned.
stay tuned. Yeah, like it's going to be a surprise even to me.
Yeah.
So, like, again, the chaos keeps ensuing here.
Yeah. Seemingly Impossible Love Life of Amanda Dean, romance, got a starred review, and plays around with timelines, which is crazy that I feel like both of us are kind of into that right now.
I love using flashbacks. So, which is kind of
Yeah.
funny, because when I first started reading, I kind of was like, what is this? Why is this? But as I've read longer and longer, like, I love a good flashback. I think it really helps add depth and nuance to characters that you don't generally get to have
Yes.
otherwise, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
just living in the present.
You have to know
So,
how to do it the right way for sure, because sometimes you're in a flashback. Like, I think there's the flashback that takes you back and puts you in the moment. And then there's sort of the pseudo flashback, which is really just sort of another character summarizing something that happened before, and or the narrator summarizing something that happened before. And I feel like part of storytelling is really knowing when to wield which sword and knowing what's the right tool to use at which time. So I agree. I think flashbacks are like super powerful. I'm now realizing as I'm talking, this is actually my third book playing with timelines, because Teen Girls does that back and forth thing too. So I love it. But I think that sometimes I see it and I'm like, wait, I don't love this so much right now. Like, do we really need this much flashback situation?
but that's knowing when to use it and when not to use it, right?
Exactly.
Like, I know for me, for Seemingly Impossible Love Life of Amanda Dean, I use a non-linear timeline, and that's how I handle most of my flashbacks, if you will. And a lot of readers, like, they don't quite understand why I chose to do it that way, which, fair. I've seen
Mhm.
reviews and people have been like, why didn't you just tell it linearly? But the thing is that telling it non-linearly gave me the opportunity to hit like those plot points more accurately, because
Mhm.
otherwise it's kind of like this slow burn of like her life, and so we
Mhm.
miss all of that different emotional highs and lows that we get to have when we get to see her through different parts of her life. So I do
Mhm.
understand that it can be a little bit confusing, and if I got to go back in time, I would probably end up putting like her age at the top of each chapter, but that had never been brought up in any of the editorial work that I did with my editor, with my agent, like along the way, like through multiple readers, marketing. Like, no one said, "Hey, maybe we should put her age at the top." And I think that probably could have helped a little bit along the way, but live and
Mhm.
learn, that's what we can do.
Well, that's the biggest thing too, I think, about experiencing a book being out in the world. That's not your first rodeo, but I think the reality of all the different feedback that you're going to get, stuff that's going to come up that you're like, 5,000 people read this book. How is this just coming up? And also learning how to handle that with grace, I think, is the biggest thing. Personally, I feel like I've read some reviews of my books that, weren't necessarily glowing. And I'm a lot of times like, you have a point. Like, I think touche. And I think that's a big part of it, is just being able to sort of take it, not like take it the right way. It's worth it to be able to read it. You can respectfully disagree with it, or you can accept like, hey, I'm human. I'm just doing my best out here. And you have a great eye. Have you thought about editing? Because what you bring up is a good point, reader. So yeah, I don't know. I don't spend a ton of time in my reviews. I don't really like to, usually I don't really look unless somebody tags me in one, but every now and then you get tagged in one that has some constructive criticism. And in those moments, I just feel like, thank you, A, for reading my book. Thank you, B, for taking the time to actually write a review, because that requires an extra step and thought process. And, it is what it is. That's part of the job.
Absolutely. And I think it brings to the point too, like, it's so subjective, right? So
yeah. There's no right book. There's no perfect book.
No. And speaking of subjectivity, there are some rules though to romance that I think that we can agree on.
Yeah. There are. Aren't there?
There are. Like a romance reader is expecting there to be either a happily for now or a happily ever after, right? Like that is part of the genre that is expected for a romance reader. Would you agree?
I 100% agree.
Excellent. I knew we would align on this one. Oh, Lane is texting me questions. So he wants me to ask the question, are there any new trends that we're seeing in romance?
I'll let you go first. Okay. I would say, for everybody, I have been very fortunate so far to be able to try out a couple different things so far with my books, genre-wise. So this is my first sort of step into the romance pool. And I kind of love it here. It's so fun and it's so tropey and people are so passionate. And I don't know, it's just, I'm having so much fun with it. But I'll let you go first, especially from like the agent side. You probably have, from the author and agent side, you probably have a couple of thoughts.
Right. So in like agent land, like we've seen an uprise in romantasy, obviously, which is very popular. And so lots of submissions are coming in like that. We're seeing lots of books being published with that. But to that point, like I think we're kind of reaching that peak of it. And so publishers, I feel, are pulling back on it. We're getting that same response. Well, how do we get this to stand out in a crowded romantasy market, right? So I don't see it going away, but I don't see us continuing along those lines for very much longer. I do hear the talks of like horrance, like horror romance.
How do you pronounce that? I see that sometimes too.
I don't know. Like, is it
horromance? I think it's horromance.
Something like that. So that's being, brought about and talked about in lots of different areas. And so, I mean, it's not a new thing. There's been a lot of romance and horror along the ages. So, it's just rebranding things under different names, which I find interesting. But I don't think, regardless, romance is going away anytime soon. Romance readers are the best readers. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Yeah, very excited.
So passionate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think, regardless of the trend, I don't think it's going away anytime soon. So what are your thoughts?
I agree with you for sure. I don't know. I think romance, I don't know if I would consider this a trend or not, but one of the things that I think is kind of fun about it and just sort of shows the skill, I think, of the authors who write it, is how tropey it is and how people are like, no, I want to know what the trope is. Like people will be like, I love the one bed trope. And if you aren't doing that uniquely or in some sort of special way, it's going to feel tired and it's going to feel old. So I think for there to be so many readers who are so attached to, they're like, no, this is the trope I like, but they can read it over and over again because you have these authors who are so skillfully maneuvering it and coming up with new ways to present it, I think is really cool. And I think speaks volumes to the level of artistry of the authors who are writing in this space, because it's not easy to take something that, you know, has been done a million times, which is okay, that's what a trope is, and make it your own and make it in a way that makes that person who's read it 100 times want to read yours for the 101st time. So probably, like, again, probably not a trend, probably more just maybe back to like the romance rules. Would you consider that tropes as like a romance rule? I feel like so far the whole time I've been talking about my book to like bookstores or like industry people, they'll say like, oh, what are the tropes? Like, it's like, that's how they want to classify it. So I feel like in a way that is a little bit of a rule. Like there's tropes in there somewhere. Did I
Right.
make it up? I don't know. You know better than me in this space.
No, I think you're right, and I think that you bring a good point to it. Like we love our tropes, we love certain things, and but it's how do you make it your own, right? So, and
Yes.
I love that you brought up the one bed rule, because like there's only one bed. Because
Yes.
I do play with that trope in
Do
my next book.
you?
Yes,
I
yes, a
love
excellent chance to
it.
fall in love, and it's not a bed. It may or may not be the back of a hearse.
Yes, exactly. There you, I mean, what? That's what I mean. Like people, like this category, people are just coming up with these crazy ways to execute these ideas, and it's just so fun. It's just such a cool space. I love it here. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Okay, so Lane is continuing to send the messages.
Yes.
So thanks, Lane.
Lane, keep us on track.
You're like this omniscient, like, leader of this discussion. He wants to know why we decided to write romance.
Should I go first or should
Yeah,
you go?
do it.
Well, mine is a little bit unique again because I got sort of approached with an opportunity to write romance. The reason why I said yes, first off, is because I've always loved a love story, like in terms of the content that I consume and the things that I enjoy, and like, I don't know, the things I just think about when I'm daydreaming. I just love a love story. I always have, and I think I always will. And I had secretly like attempted them before in, you know, the books that we write that don't see the light of day, or maybe some of them one day will. We'll talk about that. But I had written stuff like that, and I just hadn't really, I don't know if it was like, didn't have the confidence to try to do it at a, you know, publishing level or whatever it was, but it just was something that I wasn't ready to try until someone was like, I think you can do it. And I think it's so interesting how Fee sort of read Seton Girls and could sort of pick like my voice and how I execute a story and be like, yeah, you can write a great romance, because Seton Girls is so, it's very much like a platonic love story. And Seton Girls, for everybody that is, I keep forgetting that I'm not just talking to you. Seton Girls is my debut novel that came out in 2022, young adult, contemporary. And it's very much a platonic love story. It's very much like girls choosing girls and sticking together and just, you know, friends are everything, screw the patriarchy type of thing. But it's
Right, but your main
not.
character in that book has a good relationship. Like, you have
Yes,
relationships in every one of your
that's
books.
true. That is true.
Oh.
I do have a relationship in every one of my books. It's not the focal point. It's not enough to be romance, but I do have those relationships in my book. But it's just like very, I think it speaks to sort of her ability as an editor and have like an editorial eye to be able to look at a book like that and say, you're going to write an amazing romance. I know you are. And I think having someone who sort of believes in you, I don't know, it never gets old for me. I always feel really grateful when I hear somebody just be like, oh, you're really good at this. Like, I don't know. So I just need to hear that sometimes. I think especially this industry, it can be hard and you can feel like, oh, am I any good at any of this? Everybody's better than me. Like the whole imposter syndrome thing. So yeah, for me, I think the opportunity was brought to me, and that was probably the impetus, like kind of what gave me the courage to step into romance. And it was the fastest book I ever wrote. Like, do you remember? I wrote that book in like 3 months.
Yeah.
Like, it was, and for all intents and purposes, it has hardly changed from like that 3 month draft. So it was obviously one that needed to come out of me. But yeah, what made you want to start writing romance?
I feel like I'm an optimistic girl at heart. Like,
Yes, you are for sure.
always looking for the bright side. So I think that's just that part of me gravitates toward those stories that at the end of the day, we are expecting that happily ever after. We are getting that hope and that joy. And so those are the stories that I like to escape into. And so
Yes.
that is something that I like to bring to the table is, those moments of like, yeah, there's tension. Yeah, there's conflict, of course, because not everything's perfect. But when you close the book, like you feel good about the story that was told. We should probably talk about next projects too. Like what are you thinking of next, Charlene? I mean, I know this, but this is for all of you
I feel
guys.
like that's such an unfair question because you know how much of a disaster I don't know what kind of words I can use on this, but I'm trying not to use like 4-letter words on this podcast.
I
Don't
think you
cut
can
that.
use 4-letter words. I mean,
Okay, well, I was gonna say my mind is a bit of a clusterfuck right now, as you know. Can I just keep it super high level? I'm just gonna say
yes.
that I am simultaneously working through a YA horror and a YA romance. It is not horror romance though. They are separate projects.
That is true. And that is fair. Yes. I plan to keep it high level as well because my next project, I have another contemporary romance that I'm playing with. I actually have 3 of them. So my agent, I love you, Ava. Like, hey, I keep hitting her with ideas. I have so many ideas. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. But I have a couple different contemporary romances that I'm playing with the ideas of and drafting. And then I actually have an adult mystery that I'm really
Yes, I
super
remember you had mentioned that.
excited about.
Yeah.
So
Doing
we'll
something
see.
different is fun.
It
Like
is.
it's so, I don't know. I feel like as a consumer, I love so many different types of books. Like for me, I attach, and the same thing for like movies, TV. I think I attach to a type of storytelling, to a way of storytelling, a way of developing characters, a way of world building, the types of questions it makes you ask. So for me, if it has that stuff, then I can read a sci-fi and I can read a lit fic and I can read, like, I kind of bounce all over the place based off of sort of the components of a story and how it's told, more so than like genre specific and really writing a specific line. But I don't know, I might be in the anomaly with that because I know publishing loves to really want you to be in one genre forever because they think that's how everybody reads. So
Right. Publishing sometimes wants you to like stick to a lane, right? But
yeah.
as
Oh
you just me, as
yeah.
you and I have get to experiment, like you've done all the things and I 100% support that and I'm here for any Charlene Thomas novel that you have.
It's
So
so nice. I do feel like I consistently tell stories in a similar way. I feel like if you know how I tell a story, oh, I don't want to, Lane, don't make me the only one. I feel no, wasn't ready for that. I feel like I do sort of have a way of telling stories that if you sort of read one of my stories, you start to become familiar with that. I think one thing I may be slowly building which I'm fine with, and I kind of want this to be my reputation a little bit. If I was like, well, what's my author brand? But I really want to have one of those brands that's like, wait till the end type of thing. I think that's been kind of consistent so far in my stories, but
1000%. Like you cannot just read a Charlene Thomas novel one time. You have to read it at least twice, like minimum. And then you have to read it again and just adore the pure brilliance.
That's the dream. That's what I want. I hope that more people than just you and I think that in the world. But
I think they do.
but yeah, that's part of my author brand that I feel like. What do you feel like is your author brand? What do you want yours to be?
I don't, you're the marketing girl, right? And you're always
Yes,
telling
give it to
me,
me, and then we can help package it. I don't know. I'm not a marketing girl for publishing though. Like I feel like I'm better at brands, which is where I sit in real life. Publishing confuses me a little bit with how they think about marketing.
well, then I think that you need to help me with my brand because I do not know what my brand is. My brand is chaotic evil. I don't
That
know.
could be a brand. You just have to own it. You have to like run with it and that just be the feel. But we can make that happen.
I don't know. I have chaotic characters that are just, I don't know, a little bit, you just question, like, are you okay? I don't know.
Yeah, but I feel like that's also because that's in your stories, but I feel like you also do attach to that in the types of stories that you try to represent, generally speaking. Like it's not like everybody is writing in the same vein, but I think at least for the stories that I'm aware of that you have, it seems like there's a little bit of a through line with you and sort of somebody who like an underdog that's really trying to sort of turn things upside down type of feel, which I love that. That's a beautiful thing to champion.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. You
Yeah.
figured it out for me. I'll send you a check for
We'll condense it a little bit. It's a little long right now, but yeah, we're working on it. We've made progress.
It's okay. We're all a work in progress. That's my characters, all works in progress.
Yes, exactly. My whole life.
All right. Well, I think we have done this for like a half an hour now, so I think we should be pretty good. And so coming to the end,
it was so easy.
It was so easy. So why don't you tell everyone about your next book really quickly and tell them where they should go to pre-order a copy?
Yes. My next book is It's You Every Time. It's releasing with Scholastic on May 6th. And it is a young adult romance, if you haven't picked up on that yet by this awesome conversation. It features two teenagers who have a meet cute in New York City. And at the end of a very magical day, they end up finding themselves trapped in a time loop that they're not quite sure how they got into it. So very strong themes of fate, grief, healing. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's one of those ones I think will make you cry like a little bit, but I don't know. I kind of like crying. Crying can be fun. So think of it that way. It's going to hydrate your skin.
Absolutely.
That nice dewy glow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, what's excellent?
A excellent chance to fall in love.
Fall in love. Sorry, did you see the feather that was like floating?
No. I did not, but I believe you. There.
But there was like one of those little feathers. The second I started talking, that was like right there, and I got distracted. But yeah, a excellent chance at falling in love.
A excellent chance to fall in love is coming out this fall from Berkeley, Penguin Random House, and it is basically my creation of what the Spirit Halloween Store lore would be. So generally speaking, it is how the Spirit Halloween Store works. If you all don't know this, I'm going to tell you. The Spirit Halloween Store needs a human soul in order for it to be able to appear randomly in a location that you never know where it's going to be every year, and then disappear a couple days after Halloween. Now, how this works is that it needs a human soul tethered to it to create the magic. You will remember the store, of course. Who doesn't love the Halloween Store? You will not remember the person who it's attached to. So, and it's a romance. So good luck.
Yeah, I love the concept. It's so good. I texted Anne the other day randomly. I was like, I was just on Goodreads and I just reread your synopsis, your summary, and it's so good. It's so good. I love it.
Well, I think it's fun, and I definitely ups the stakes because, like, if she disappears, that's it.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? So, but if you want to pre-order a copy of It's You Every Time, or A Excellent Chance to Fall in Love. You can go ahead
Yeah.
and do those at your favorite indie bookstore. Don't forget,
Yeah.
they all will have them. So go ahead and contact them. Or if you are a little strapped on cash, request them at your library. We would love that for us too. Some other romances that are coming out from my authors this year
Oh, you're so
are
on top of
this
it.
beautiful book right here, which is Salty, Spiced, and a Little Bit Nice,
I love
by
that cover.
Cynthia here. And it isn't it so cute?
It's so good. Yeah.
It's about Ellie here, and she is diabetic, and so she wants to open a sugar-free bakery. So for a sugar-free book, there is nothing that is not sweet about this romance. So
Hmm.
make sure you get a copy of that. And I think that's it for another episode of Literary Lens. If you have any questions, comments, leave them in the link below. And we'd love to see you at our AMA at the end of the month sometime. I think Lane always talks about it. I think it's the last Wednesday of the month at, I'm going to throw out a time, 7 p.m. Eastern
Yeah.
time. So make sure you come and join us then. Thanks so much.
Thank you.